Hi everybody, I am here with my brother Andrew. Hello Andrew. Thank you for being interviewed by your sister.
Yeehaw.
So we're going to talk about my book like it was yesterday, A Journalist Files Since 9/11. And I have never interviewed my brother about my book or about 9/11 before, so it is definitely time. How many years has it been now? We're going on
3 years.
23.
20, going 22 and a half years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was like last week.
Well, like it was yesterday.
Yesterday, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the best title for that book, am I right? Because it does seem like it was yesterday. And here we are in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, which is where you moved to after 9/11. Why did you choose Stroudsburg?
Proximity to New York, because a lot of people were moving out here to relocate to get out of New York. And at the time, for this little tiny town, there were over 16,000 people that commuted daily to either New York or New Jersey. And the promise of a train, being a commuter train to be built, which they've been talking about that now for over 30 years, and that's one of the new
still hasn't happened
under Biden with the new one of the $1 trillion plans. He's supposedly, New Jersey has said, yes, we're in this time. So now there's going to be a real effort. Well, that's been about a year and a half ago now.
Oh,
anyway,
has there been a real effort?
Yeah,
no real effort.
None whatsoever. It's exactly the same rhetoric it was 25 years ago. Anyway, so I did that commute for about a year and a half, and I said, I'm done with that. It was about 76 miles by bus. It's about an hour and 45 minutes or so on a good day with traffic, 2 hours. Yeah, that's at that time I was working at One Chase Manhattan Plaza, which looked down over, well, I also commuted from Long Island at the same, when I lived out there, but also from Pennsylvania. But for about 3 years, worked in One Chase Manhattan Plaza, and it's the tallest building after the World Trade Center went down in downtown New York, and it would look down right over Ground Zero, and they actually had the windows blocked out for a long time. They didn't want anybody going up to the higher floors to look down on the Ground Zero.
Really?
Can you believe that?
Wow.
I don't know whose policy that was, but you couldn't go up to the 60th floor and look down. I was on the 40th floor, so we could see a little bit, but we're obstructed, so we couldn't see much. But every day I would walk past the whole fenced-in area, and if you remember, through the months, the perimeter got smaller and smaller. Actually, it took about 2 years for the whole perimeter to get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until you could actually almost walk around the whole Ground Zero and look directly in. But yeah, it's amazing how all that went down, how it got rebuilt. I always like when I tell people the story of 9/11 and my experience, I always say the most incredible thing that's never been talked about, that there's a reason why it's never been talked about, the cleanup. All of the millions of tons of dust and debris that was everywhere, all over downtown New York. So when I walked out of my building, at the time I was at 55 Water Street. We were on the 28th floor, and when the first tower went down, the dust cloud, you could watch it coming. It was about 8 blocks away, and you could see it traveling through the buildings, over top of the buildings, overtaking all the buildings. And finally, I looked down at all the people on the street, and I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen to all those people down there. And I looked at one of the women right next to me who wanted to leave our building, and I said, see, aren't you glad you're not down there? Didn't I tell you to stay inside the building? Anyway, within a matter of seconds, everybody was completely covered with blackout. You couldn't see, and the dust cloud, it took about 3 or 4 seconds before we couldn't see out of our window anymore. And it took about a half an hour to clear so that you could see down below. And all the people were all gone by then. There was a firehouse that you could look down on one side right next to our building, and a couple of the people were coming out of the firehouse. You could see they went into the firehouse for shelter, but they looked okay. But I still couldn't believe how anybody survived that dust cloud, and how they cleaned it up. When I left, and that was just one tower. When the second tower, the exact same thing happened. When I left that building at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 55 Water Street, to walk up to Penn Station, which was 34th Street, so it was, like 50 blocks away. When we walked out of there, there's a flower store that's like half a block long, and all the flowers, it was just surreal. You felt like you were walking on the moon or something, because every step you took just left a footprint in all the dust and debris. And all the flowers were completely covered. They looked so delicate.
Wow. With
just a pile of ash on them. And the buildings, everything was just covered with, an inch of debris. It was incredible. And so the next day we had off from work, worked at Chase Bank, and the next day we worked up at Thursday, we worked up at
So you had to go to work the next day?
No, the next day we were off.
Okay,
we didn't go. The day after. It was on Thursday. We went up to our corporate headquarters up at 277 Park Avenue to call people to say, our top clients and customers, to say, your money's fine, everybody is okay, everything is good, your money is still here. Nobody cared about that. They just everybody had a story to tell. We were on the phone all day long with people, just listening to all their stories. Anyway, couple of people forgot things at the building, so on Friday I found my way down there, and they had it all perimetered off, but I was able to get off when the subway stops, and I just walked all the way around. And by Friday, most of the streets and everything were clear. I couldn't understand. And we were back at work in our building at 55 Water Street, I believe. I want to say Tuesday or Wednesday. It was mostly a safety issue. They didn't want people down there because of the cleanup and the smoke. But once the smoke was clear, but anyway, the story is I could never find an article or a story or find out, did they spray it down? Did it all go into the East River? Where did it go? It must have been fire hoses just sprayed everything down and just let it all go into the sewer system. There's no other explanation. Anyway, but yeah, that's one of the most amazing things once you got over the whole shock and terror of the whole thing, was the cleanup. It was just so sparkling. It's like they wanted to make it look like nothing happened. It's almost as though they've done it before. It was like, how did they know what to do? They've cleaned up ticker tape parades from the Yankees winning and stuff like that, but that's just paper. You could see them, you could actually watch that happening with the street cleaners and the sweepers, and they come in and clean up all the paper. But this was just, 30-story buildings covered. I just don't understand that. Had you ever heard anything about the cleanup?
No, I never even thought about the cleanup.
Exactly. Nobody ever did. And that was the initial cleanup. After that, it took, the rest of the cleanup was another amazing feat.
Years, right?
Well, completely. By the time the subway line got opened, the 2 and the 3 and the 1 and the 9, was wild to see down into Ground Zero, into the pit, they called it. And you could see the subway, which used to go underneath the World Trade Center,
Wow.
to watch the subway go. It's like 30 feet underground, to watch it going, and then it would stop at the same stop, except the stairs were now outside instead of under the World Trade Center. It was pretty eerie when I first took that for the first time.
Really?
To be underneath
Yeah.
where the buildings used to be. It was about, probably.
And it was open.
It was open, yeah. It was
Weird.
no longer underground.
Wow.
It was at least 30 feet down. Yeah, that was really creepy. And that, I'm trying to remember the timeline. I don't know. It was at least a year and a half later. It's so hard. It seemed like the days and the months just didn't seem real. It was so hard. The time frame of things back then was just bizarre.
What do you remember most about that day?
Just mostly is when I got to work, I was the first one there, as always, a little after 7, and another guy was there, and we were just, his name was John, and he usually came in right after me, and he was sitting down, and he got up, and he looked out the window, and we both saw at the same time. We both looked up, and it was like millions of pieces of paper falling from the sky, just tens of thousands of pieces of paper falling from the sky. And I thought, what the hell happened? I thought, all right, somebody's burning their trash. It's one of the incinerators blew up or something, because all these big apartment buildings, they'll burn their trash. A lot of them do. And I thought, this must be something. And he's like, nah, Andrew, that can't be. It's got to be something else. And he had a little transistor radio, and he pulled it up, and we listened to, I think it was 880 Winds News, and it's reported that a small airplane had crashed into the tower.
Wow, they couldn't even be accurate.
Yeah, they couldn't even be accurate. They call it a small plane, and it's like, that doesn't sound right. And John and I, we looked at each other like, you had that just unsettling feeling of knowing that this wasn't the right thing, that this was, you were being told the wrong story already, and it was just, what the hell happened? And we could see the smoke, coming up. We couldn't see direct line. We could see a direct line of one of the towers, just a little corner of it, but you could see smoke just pouring out of the sky. I was like, then the first thing I thought was, how the hell are they going to put that fire out? That's insane. It's so high up. How are they going to put that out? And then, you've just heard nonstop sirens from that point on. Just nonstop sirens and fire engines. And I remember watching the fire department below us, all the fire trucks empty out of there. And then people started coming in the building, and at that point, again, I can't remember all the timelines, but the next tower was hit, and we could feel the explosion. You could feel the concussion against the glass.
Wow.
I was standing there with about 4 people looking up at all the smoke, and we didn't see it hit, but you felt this kaboom, this amazingly loud, horrific. It was,
But
like,
not the first time, only the second
no,
time.
only the second time. Yeah, we didn't hear it the
weird.
first time. I don't know why we didn't hear it, but the second one, maybe because it was on the direction of our building, 55 Water and this, whatever, the South Tower, or whichever one got hit second, and they explode.
Were you closer to the South Tower?
Yes.
Okay.
And you could feel it into the glass, through the glass, the concussion of the explosion. Wow. And we all were like, holy shit, that was on purpose. We all looked at each other instantly. The 4 people that were staying, 3 of us, myself and 3 other people, were like, that was on purpose. And then people started to freak out. And there was the one woman, she was like, I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. I said, no, Natalie, nobody's going anywhere. Nobody's going outside. Our building was one of the safest buildings in downtown Manhattan. It had its own power source, its own water source. Everybody else lost power. We didn't lose power. People were coming into our building for safety and housing and shelter because it was
And
such
you knew this.
Yes, we knew that from the moment that building was known for that.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's a huge volume building, and it's known for being one of the most well-built buildings downtown. Anyway, it's convinced people not to go out. By then, there were about 150 people that worked on the floor with us, and I was responsible as a team leader for about 20 of these people. And I wasn't responsible for them, but I was close to them. And
So you felt
this
responsible.
one woman, she was probably in her early 60s, and she was having a panic attack. And we tried everybody, like, what can we do to help Natalie calm down? She was a native Manhattan person. She lived in Manhattan all her life. If somebody had a little bottle of whiskey stashed somewhere and they found it and they gave her a couple of shots, and she was okay. She calmed
Really?
down. Yes.
Oh,
She was calmed down.
Whiskey.
And shortly after that, one of the women who lived on Long Island came in, and her name is Janine, and I'll never forget. She's a young girl, probably in her late 20s, and she was like white as a ghost. She had like red hair and freckles, and her face was just white. And I'm like, how did you, Janine, what happened? Are you okay? What's going on out there? And by then, everybody had TVs and their phones, whatever they could find, trying to figure out what was the computers on, news stations. And she just looked at me, and she was like, I thought she was going to pass out. And she said, Andrew, it's raining body parts. When I got off the subway, it was raining body parts. And that's all she could say. It was just, and she just sat down. I said, Janine, come over here, sit down. We got to take care of you. You're probably in shock or something. And she took her a long time. I sat with her for a while, and until she could call whoever she had to call to say she was safe. And by then, people were just, everybody was on the phone talking about, I'm safe, I'm okay. And so by then, all the senior management, we all had a plan. We were all staying in the building, and we had a huge meeting. Everybody was required to be in this common area, and they said, we're asking you to stay, we're not going to force you to stay. And about 7 or 8 people actually left. They couldn't take it. They just had to get out of there. And we were watching out the windows, tens of thousands of people walking over the Brooklyn Bridge. We could see the Brooklyn Bridge clear as day right along the East River. And just the mass migration of people leaving, and the ferries that were coming on all back and forth the East River, taking people to Brooklyn. And then they got so many people evacuated before the building fell. It was incredible how
That's wonderful.
It was as though they had trained for it.
Yeah.
It was so well done, the evacuation process.
Well, that was the second time that the building was hit,
Right.
So maybe
Right.
they really had
Maybe they
trained
really
for
had
it.
some plan.
Where
I
were
mean,
you the first time the building was hit? What year was
Oh
that?
my gosh, that was 94?
94.
Was it 94, I think? I'll have to look it up.
I'll look it up.
So, I don't know.
Were you there? You weren't there though, right?
No, I was in, let's see, we were in Staten Island.
That's right.
I was probably in Staten Island. Either that or I would have been up in...
It was 93.
93, okay.
February 26, 93.
February of 93, we were probably, depending on, it was in the morning, so I was probably... It was such a non-event in some ways.
Yeah.
They, oh yeah, there was an explosion at the bottom of the World Trade Center. It took literally weeks later, you didn't realize it was a terrorist attack.
True.
Yeah. But this, people knew right away, and that's when the people were freaking out. Like, the rumors started like mad. Oh, the Empire State Building was struck, the other buildings, the Chrysler Building was hit, like what, nobody, fake news.
Right, all sorts
was
of fake news everywhere.
And when somebody did say the Pentagon was hit, then that was confirmed, because people were watching the news. That was pretty real. But I remember the other thing that's so vivid in my memory is when that first building went down, I just thought about all those firemen, all those police, all those
That was
first
the worst part.
responders.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, they're just like that. They're gone. Just so many. And by then, you could see the downtown was like barren. There were still a lot of people out, but not the tens of thousands of people that were there. They had just gotten out so quickly, and they say that over they could have, if they didn't evacuate people so quickly, it could have been like 25,000 people
Yep,
killed.
that's right.
And that's one of the stats
Yeah.
that
And
just
a lot of
blows my
people
mind.
didn't go to work that day
lot
for
of people,
whatever
yeah.
weird reason.
People up above, we didn't get to see from where we were the people hanging out the windows and the people jumping and everything, but you heard other people talking about it. They were showing it. People were saying, "Oh my God, people are jumping out of the building."
So you didn't see that?
If you could, I didn't look. I couldn't.
No,
I couldn't.
How could you?
I didn't even want to know about it, and I was just more worried about the people in our building, and I was just trying to keep people calm. And when that second building fell, you could just, both times you could feel the rumble. It felt like a minor earthquake. I've never felt a minor earthquake, but I would imagine that's what it would feel like, the rumbling. And especially when the second building fell, the first time it was like, what was that? What was that? What was that? And everyone was like, the tower just fell. Look, it's on the news. The tower just fell. And that's when the cloud just enveloped everything. And when the second tower fell, you knew what it was. Nobody had to ask. It was like, this is it's surreal. It's just surreal that just a few hours ago you could look up and see the towers, and then you couldn't. By the time the dust cleared, an hour and a half later, and you could see the smoke. It was so much lower to the ground, just going away. Luckily, it was going away from us, but the smoke just blowing toward, where was it blowing at that time? Let me think. It was blowing toward Brooklyn. It was blowing from west to east, and it was just low to the ground, and the sky was so clear, and you could just see the smoke billowing.
It was the
across.
most beautiful day.
Oh my God.
The most beautiful day.
And I just thought about, at first, we didn't know how many people got out, but you could tell by the amount of people evacuated that tens of thousands of people got out. But we thought, thousands of people were dead. That's what we thought. We were, there were no reports. It was just, everybody assumed the absolute worst. And Heidi, of course, she was at a hospital. She was doing her for her PA program. She was doing her, I forget what it's called. Like you have to go spend several weeks with different types of practice, different rounds, but whatever it's called. And she was in a hospital in Queens, and they were on high alert. They were told to, be prepared for bringing in all kinds of injured and wounded people. And of course, that never materialized. Not one person came into their hospital. Not one person came into any of it.
That was the craziest part.
Yeah. Nobody was
No.
injured in order to be taken for care. The handful of people that did
in the very
hurt.
beginning, though, there were people who came out of the elevators of the World Trade Center, and they had been burned.
Right.
Remember that?
There were burns.
Yeah.
Yes, there were burn victims.
As if there was a bomb in the basement.
Right.
Which a lot of people think there was a bomb in the basement,
And
because
it
how else
traveled
did
up
that
through-
happen?
Yeah, it traveled up to into the elevator shaft.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just unbelievable how. So of course, they were trying to reach me. I wasn't there was no cell service. Of course, everything went down and crashed right away with the cell service. But my desk phone, I happened to be walking by and heard it ringing. It was my mother-in-law. She's like, Andrew, are you okay? Are you okay? Like, at that point, it hit me. It hit me so hard. I was like, oh my God, this is like the biggest earth-shattering, the biggest tragedy in U.S. history, you know.
That's right.
And I just started.
And you almost died.
And I just started to sob. I was like, I
Oh,
can't believe it.
man.
I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. And I lost it for about 20 seconds. I just was like, oh my God, the reality of the whole thing just hit me that you can't get this back. This is things will never be the same ever again. So she called everybody to say, I just spoke to Andrew, he's okay, you know. So when we finally got out of the building, we were one of the last ones out, and 4 of us walked out. We had to go down the stairs, which was not fun. That took forever. And even though the elevators were working, they didn't want us taking the elevators. But when we got out, we had to walk up to Penn Station, and to walk, the people that were out there, everybody was offering you water, and they were so helpful. Nobody was even worried. There was no police worried about looting. There was nothing like that. There was no people, you know, standing next to their stores or whatever. There were no police out monitoring. There was no looting that I didn't know about. It didn't seem that way.
It did turn out that the firemen actually.
The firemen did, yes.
Under the World Trade Center with all those high-end stores, they stole everything they could.
They took a lot of
Just
stuff.
saying,
but it wasn't the people, though. It
was the firemen.
So fucked up that the firemen were behind that. What were they, firemen? Were they dressed like firemen?
That's what I
were they
heard.
really firemen?
I don't know. That's just what I
never heard. And of course, then people started, you know, the next day or 2 days later, we were at Chase Bank. They were like, because they had a branch underneath there, a big branch. Right. It's like the money.
Wasn't there gold under there too?
There was a lot of gold,
and it disappeared.
And the big people did ask about that. How are you guys gonna rescue the money from the vault? Like, they'll dig through it. Don't worry, they'll find it. But two of my clients died. This young girl and another woman. She was I forget she was with one of the big bond traders, and I had to be in charge of their accounts. And it was terrible because I think she was in the process of getting divorced, but she didn't get divorced. So when the money hit her account, like they all got $526,000, or I forget the exact number. I actually printed it out because the one day her account balance was like, you know, $90,000. The next day it was like $526,000 more. Wow. Within like 3 days. That guy cleaned it out.
Wow.
He had taken all the money out. Yeah, it was terrible. The other one, her sister was in charge of the money, and she was great. I talked to her all the time, and she was like, "What should I do with the money, Andrew?" I said, "I think you should, you know, take some for yourself and donate some, give it to people that." She's like, "I don't really need it, you know." So anyway, it was
about the kids that lost their parents.
Kids that lost their parents, and you start hearing about all the firefighters and all the funerals that were happening and going around. So the next few days, there were just hundreds all over downtown Manhattan for like weeks. It felt like a couple of weeks. There were signs everywhere, missing person, the missing signs.
I walked around with you and saw that.
Remember all those missing signs?
It was horrible.
And they had as they built a perimeter around, they had the chain link fence, and people left hundreds and hundreds of mementos.
It was so sad.
And that was really sad. You just walked for like 2 or 3 blocks, and there was just missing signs and mementos and things like that. And that was just heartbreaking. And then, you know, right on that same corner, all that week and the next couple of weeks were full military guys with machine guns, you know, all over Wall Street. I used to take a detour and walk around Wall Street just to see all the military guys in front of the Federal Reserve. They had, you know, the full riot gear, the full machine guns, parts of the military I've never seen before were there.
Wow.
We're all over downtown. It didn't make me feel any safer, but I was, you know, I don't know what the hell you guys were doing there. I think they just, everybody was on such high alert. I don't know. It just didn't feel right. A lot of it didn't feel right.
All right. So I got to
But
stop you for a second.
that's those are my deepest memories.
All right. Well, I want to take you to today, because what you're talking about right now with these are your memories, but today
Things just didn't feel right.
today things still don't feel right, because here's the news today. And this is from a SOFREP.com, which is actually a military newspaper. And the title is Persistent Warnings from George Tenet to Christopher Wray. And those warnings, another 9/11 style attack is in the works. So I'm just
It's imminent.
imminent.
It's not a threat. It's imminent.
It's actually going to happen,
Yeah.
according to these guys.
The
So
FBI.
yeah, here, let me just read you a little bit from SOFREP.com. This article was just recently published. It says, fast forward 25 years, FBI Director Christopher Wray is sounding similar alarms to 9/11. While his discussions within the Biden administration are private, his public testimonies are crystal clear. During a Senate Intelligence Committee hearing in December, Wray said, when I sat here last year, I walked through how we were already in a heightened threat environment. After Hamas' October 7th attack on Israel, we've seen the threat from foreign terrorists rise to a whole other level, he added. Wray has often highlighted security gaps at the southern border of the United States, where thousands enter undetected each week. What do you think about that, Andy? The terrorists are pouring in.
They're pouring in.
Pouring in the country from the border. Even some of the illegal aliens are concerned about the other illegal aliens
that are terrorists.
Yes, you've heard that.
Yes,
It's crazy. So
I've heard estimates from government agencies that say there are upwards of 2 million terrorists. 2 million. All they need.
Al-Qaeda, ISIS, ISIS-K, whatever that is. That's the ISIS affiliate in Afghanistan and Pakistan.
They say there's at least 4 Iranian assassins out there. There's still a hit out there on Biden, Obama, and how many hits are out on Trump? Who knows?
Yeah.
The Iranians. Yeah. I mean, that guy is so incredibly brave to be out there in public, knowing that there are Iranian terrorists in our country who number one mission is they're assassins.
They're assassins.
They're assassins out there, and they're.
It's amazing that Trump is still alive.
How and everyone's just waiting. How is it going to happen? When is it going to go down?
Yeah.
When is it going to be in the cities? Is it going to be in the rural areas? Do they actually think they can, get away with it? The CIA has actually called it on the Wayne Allen Root show. He has a CIA buddy that his connection is, and he used the terms. His CIA folks said it's a Red Dawn event. They actually used the word Red Dawn. It's like some sort of publication that.
Remember that movie Red Dawn? Yeah. What was that? It sounded like the Russians.
It was the Russians and the Mexicans.
And didn't they come in?
The Cubans.
Didn't they come in with parachutes, kind of like those October 7th dudes?
Yes, yeah.
Just like that, right?
I guess they didn't get to see the end of the movie though because
they lost.
Yes, they underrate the American people.
Right.
Our Second Amendment. I mean, if they do go after the cities, the gangs are going to tear them apart. It's the only reason why I think they allow some of the gangs to exist. They're not going to go after in LA, but who knows what their plan is? Are they just going to take out high-end rich people, or are they going to go after citizens? They're not very specific about. Are they going to plant dirty bombs? Or are they going to EMP,
poison the well.
Poison the wells, yeah. Cut the power grid, probably.
Yeah. Which I'm kind of looking forward to, the power grid going down.
They've been testing that. How many have they attacked in North Carolina and Washington State and other places where they've attacked the power grid?
How about those barges running into...
The barges,
the barges. That didn't just happen once, by the way.
12 barges. That,
I'm going to look that up while we talk.
The day of that barge hitting in Maryland, there were 3 other barges. I think it was either that day or the very next day. that went into bridges.
Pelican Island Causeway had a barge crash. Where's Pelican Island Causeway? Houston. So Houston
right?
is one.
I think there's one in
Let's see.
was it
Large barge crashes into historic Fort Madison Bridge in Iowa.
Iowa, right? That's
A
the one I was
month
thinking
ago.
of. Yeah.
Barge collides into bridge off of Texas coast, causing oil spill. Yeah, there we go. Source of oil leak into Galveston Bay following barge collision has been contained. Barge hits bridge, Galveston. Okay, yeah. So we got lots of. What are you trying to do there?
Turn it toward you.
Oh, yeah.
people
So
can
anyway,
see it.
lots of barge accidents.
Yeah, look it up, folks.
Look it up,
all
you guys.
All the
It's
barges
real.
that have. So if you get barges, who knows how many cars or trucks are going to drive into tunnels and blow up tunnels, which is probably on the list.
Yeah.
Grenade launchers into the power grids. Take down a few of those high power lines. It takes us 5 or 10 guys to take one of those down easily. What else? The well, poison the water.
Yep.
That's a relatively easy one.
Oh,
So you got
yes.
the power, the water.
Speaking of which, when on
tunnels,
my way to visit you, I went through this area
bridges.
that said it was a sensitive drinking water area. What is up with that? Let's advertise. Hey, everybody, don't mess with the water here because everyone drinks it.
We know you're here, so
Yeah.
let's tell you where to go.
It seems that way. Like the whole area is warns you when you get there. Don't poison the well.
Yeah, and I'm sure they know of half the terrorists that are here too, and they're just, we can't arrest you because we don't have anything to.
I think they're paying them.
Arrest you
I
on.
think they're giving them the cards, because they're illegal immigrants.
Well, they all
so
have their phones, so that's
they
the
get
best
what-
way
yeah.
to send the message now. The countdown has begun. 2 hours from now, you will all be activated.
Well, and let's not forget what happened when they had the emergency broadcast system on October 6th, by the way.
Yeah.
That was the day before, exactly several hours before the attack from Hamas happened. That same day, don't forget it. What do you think about that?
Yeah. I hate
Do you
to
think
be
they
a-
activated them? I
hate
feel
to
like
be
they
a
did.
conspiracy theory, but you know
Uh,
what
oh,
they say about conspiracy
Proud
theories.
conspiracy theirist right here. I am.
You know
I'm
what
proud
they say?
of it. Yeah.
Every conspiracy theory is just 6 months away from the truth,
We're always right.
or
We're-
maybe 3 months now.
I have yet to be wrong. I've been right
November,
about everything.
February, March, April, May. Yeah, we're due.
We're due.
It's like
Yeah.
8 months from October. So.
Yeah. I haven't been wrong about anything, by the way, and I've predicted a lot of crazy stuff, and you know it.
But
Yeah.
how is it going to go down? I just can't. Are they going to go after the
Well,
main? They're gonna
how
have
did
to-
COVID go down?
Yeah,
Were you
that's
expecting
true,
that one?
right?
That was a nice shocker,
So is the left behind it? Because if all this happens and there's war declared, and then there's martial law.
Yeah, martial law.
Martial law. Guess what you can't do in martial law? There's no voting in martial
voting.
law. There's
Oh,
no
no.
votes, no voting in martial law. Wouldn't that be convenient?
Sure.
If that
would.
happened right around September, October, or even before. They say that if this does happen, they'll shut down the stock markets. No one.
You mean when it happens?
When it happens, yeah. The stock market will shut down. Everything will cease and desist. People will be afraid to leave their homes. Sure, the military will take care of it. And at that point, martial law kicks in, and you'll probably be shot on sight if you leave your house anyway. And that's like even better than COVID, because now they have actual validity. Because now we can kill you if you are out and about trying to, get food, water, trying to survive. But the U.S. military, I know some folks that are pretty close to some military guys, and they say that the U.S. military will not fire on their own citizens. So they're going to have to bring in the UN and the NATO guys to.
They're marching across the border as we speak.
Yeah,
Just saying.
yeah, I know. It's unbelievable.
So I just want to, I don't want anyone to be frightened
No,
by
yeah,
these
don't be
things that
frightened,
we're
'cause
saying.
it's not
Don't
gonna
be
happen.
frightened
It's
because,
just-
you know, they can try to do whatever they can try to do. But like my brother just pointed out, never underestimate the American people and our Second Amendment, which they've been trying to rip from us since our country was first born. And they never will. They will never take our guns because that's what keeps us safe. If every American has a gun, there's no way that they can really do what they want to do. Am I right?
Learn to how to use it safely and protect yourself.
Exactly.
That's what it's there for.
It is, and that is why our forefathers made these rules that they did, and made sure that we would never be.
They knew tyranny was out
disarmed.
there.
They knew it. They knew what was coming. They
Yeah,
knew what was
did.
coming.
That's why they have so many of the things that they created.
Exactly, which is why, by the way, we live in a constitutional republic,
Yes.
not a democracy. Democracy is mob rule, and we don't want any of that. Look at what the Democrats want for us with their threats about destroying democracy. You know what? Have at it, because democracy stinks.
And their way of controlling threatening democracy is let's just eliminate the opposition, just like most third world countries do, and most African nations back
Banana
in the 60s
republics,
and
hello.
70s. Yeah, that's all
Exactly.
their dictators eliminated their opposition. I think
Exactly.
Putin may have done the same thing, but who knows what's really going on there anyway. But
That's true. But we're having this talk
it's a
because
real
people
conversation.
need to be prepared, and you need to know that this is going to happen. They're going to do any means possible to try to destroy our beautiful constitutional republic. But we're not going to let them do it, and you can't be afraid of them either, because
Don't be
no
afraid.
fear here. So, Andy, thank you so much.
Question authority.
Yes, always question authority. I'm honored to be your sister, and I thank you so much for this interview. Is there anything that you'd like to add?
Read Jill's book.
There we go.
Like it was yesterday.
Thank you.
It's good
A
stuff.
journalist file since 9/11. All right, you guys. Ciao for now.
Adios.